Welcome in to the 40th episode of the Southern Boy Sports Podcast. My name is Drew Hull, along with my co-host Ben Clay.
What's going on, guys?
Episode 40 coming to you a little late.
Yep.
This one's a little weird. A little bit awkward, a little bit of technical difficulties before we kick this one off. Ben was at an event. I was going to start it on my own, roll solo. I had confidence in myself. I started the episode. I said, you know what? This is going good. Ben joins. We're going to talk over some breakout stars for 2023, 2024. He can't hear me, okay? About 11 minutes in. I had already talked about what we were just about to talk about. You know, it's the life of just working hard, grinding it out, grinding and pounding and just, okay, time. Working hard and just I feel like I put myself in that position.
You definitely did. You definitely did.
On that one. So I do apologize if you just clicked on this one and started listening and got an earful about grinding and pounding. But hey, episode 40, Ben, we are here.
Yep.
Spring game takeaways, spring game recaps. I've done my due diligence. I've looked over some notes, read some articles, watched some highlights, stuff like that. And then we've got some breakout stars for 2023, 2024. Ben, are you ready to jump into it? Before we jump into it, actually, my objection. How's your week been, man? We always start with it. Got to kick it off again.
It's been fun. Man. Baseball. It's been going. But this season's gone by fast. It's coming up. You got like 2 weeks left.
Yep.
Kind of crazy. But we're looking at college football. It's getting closer and closer.
Yeah. Definitely is. If you listen to episode 39 with our main JD Piquel, we do appreciate it. Hope you left us a 5-star review, a like, and a subscribe over on YouTube. We do apologize for some severe echoing. That was pretty bad, man. I don't know what was up. Some feedback from the microphones and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Quite rough. We appreciate JD bearing with us through it. I don't know how bad it was for everyone, but when I listened back to it, it was pretty severe. So we do apologize for that. We fixed it up here on episode 40. Got some sweet graphics coming to you a little later in the show. But hey, let's start with Michigan. As I said, did this part on my own. Absolutely knocked it out of the park, but we'll do it here one-on-one, Ben. J.J. McCarthy, absolute dog. He's going to be good. He's going to be really good. He was quicker making decisions, and he was able to throw sideline to sideline. Two of the biggest things for a quarterback that you want to see develop. The ability to sling the ball into tight windows after a quick progression. We saw some things that didn't point toward that last year. The pick six and the playoff game against TCU to Bud Clark. Things like that where he was just not going through his progressions. He was a young kid, first year starting, and he didn't really go through his progressions, do his due diligence of reading through. I saw him make multiple sideline-to-sideline throws, which was really intriguing to watch. And he was 7 of 10, 85 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. The pick was a spring game interception. He just sailed it over the kid's head. Some guy got a pick in the secondary. So, I mean, it was rough on the interception for sure. But, yeah, he looked good. I think the tight ends looked really good. And I got some other things to get to, but I'll let you get your 2 cents in. And Ben is frozen. Ben's Wi-Fi, he needs to upgrade. I don't know what he's on. He might be on T-Mobile, maybe AT&T. I don't know, Ben. What's your Wi-Fi situation?
Dude, I don't even know. It's T-Mobile, but I don't even know.
Yeah, but come on, Just kidding.
Well,
no shots to T-Mobile. No shots at all. We don't
know.
love T-Mobile. Xfinity is the way to go. Verizon, excuse me. But continue, Ben. Your 2 cents on this one.
Yeah, I mean, this is a good team, a really good team, a really balanced team too. They literally have everything. I mean, you need leadership. You got Blake Corum. You need some young stars. You have plenty of young stars to go around. McCarthy. I mean, it's everywhere. This defense, young, but they are ready to make plays. And it's crazy. This team is setting themselves up to have a really great season. And these like standout players that were really standing out in the like spring game. I mean, these are players that they're going to need to step up after losing some talent like Luke Schoonmaker and some other players. So, but this team, it looks like everyone's ready to step up, and they could definitely make a push in the playoffs.
Yeah, and I think the biggest, I think this was my biggest takeaway. We saw, we didn't see a quarterback battle. We didn't see Joe Milton, Nico Iamaleava, have to, see where both of them are at. We'd have to see Casey Thompson versus Jeff Sims. We'd have to see Jackson Arnold and Dylan Gabriel and see where those two guys are at, or the Georgia, Alabama quarterback battles, right? We weren't watching for that in Michigan. I think that's one of the biggest things going into spring games for people to watch is the quarterback battle, right? One I forgot to mention is Ole Miss as well. But my point is we weren't watching battles at big positions, right? Obviously, there's battles going on for CB1 in the secondary, or CB2, I should say. Will Johnson's probably got that locked down. We know who's going to be running back one. We know how they're going to use Donovan Edwards. We saw it last year. We know how they're going to use the tight ends. They understand their roles coming into this game. What this game did was solidify Michigan as a serious contender. They went from, and this year is their biggest year. It needs to be from congratulations, you made the playoffs, the 2 or the 3 seed, to being a national championship contender. Can John Harbaugh get over the ledge, put Michigan into a position to win the college football playoff national title instead of just getting there and being okay with being there? They bring back everyone. The spring game looked really, really promising. Like I said, J.J. McCarthy looked good. Wide receiver and secondary are my 2 biggest concerns, Ben.
Yeah, the secondary is talented, but I think both positions, they're talented, but they're young.
Yep.
They're talented, but they're young.
Yep.
So they definitely need those because, as we're talking about V, I mean, he loves their secondary this year. They're quick. They're all super tall, but they're young. And so if these young players can form into like playmakers and they can do their job like they're supposed to be doing, then this team could definitely go far, and I think it'll solidify them.
Yeah. Another hard to miss player, if you watch the game at all, was Benjamin Hall, the true freshman, highly ranked freshman, early enrollee in Ann Arbor. The kid looked great. 13 carries, 96 yards, 1 touchdown. Coach Hart and other media outlets were comparing him to Hassan Haskins, now Tennessee Titan Ben. He's drawing comparisons. He's got eyes on him. I think this kid could be really good. He's going to have to wait his turn. Dono Edwards, Blake Corum, absolutely hands down RB1 and RB2, and honestly, A and B, right? But he looked good. Defensive line, Kenneth Grant, Chris Jenkins, Cam Good, all contributed, all made tackles for losses, forced pressure, all looked good, looked solid, nothing to worry about. Rayshawn Berry of the Mays team as well looked good. Mays beats the Blue 22-21 in the Michigan spring game. Let's go to BYU. Let's hit a now Power 5 team, Ben. That is something that I thought I would never say. BYU, a part of the Big 12 here in 2023. Yep. And they've got a Power 5 experienced quarterback. Caden Slovis, USC, Pitt. He's been in this situation before. He's going to look to get BYU to bowl eligibility in their first year in the Big 12, which is going to be an uphill climb. I'll say that much. The defense looked weary last year. Almost 30 points per game given up in 2022, 2023. They're going to need a better defense in the Big 12. I mean, it's just a fact. You can't come in against Jalil Farouk, Dylan Gabriel, a myriad of running backs at Oklahoma, and expect to give up 30 points per game and win the game. Your offense isn't good enough. So the defense looked better. The first team defense gave up 0 points. And according to multiple, I read a bunch of articles across BYU Nation, and they were really proud of the defense. I caught a little bit of the game. I mean, it's like almost impossible to watch nowadays, but caught a little bit of the game, and it was fine. Now, BYU. I know a lot of people listening to this show aren't going to know that BYU brought in a new defensive coordinator, but they did, right? He was the head coach at Weber State, a FCS program in Washington. They beat Utah State last year in a huge upset at the FCS, FBS, matchup level. Jay Hill comes in. He's going to run a 4-man front. They're going to focus on their defensive line. They're going to make their secondary make plays. I think they've got a really good chance to have a solid defense. If BYU has a solid defense, they've got a chance to compete. If their defense is god-awful and rely on their offense, I don't think Slovis is the guy, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, it's a weird little step to go from Jaren Hall to Caden Slovis.
Yeah.
He was jumped around quite a bit. But as we were seeing, like as it showed in the spring game, that these corners for BYU, they are good. And so if they can keep that up, it'll put the team in position to, I mean, look, against teams like you got like Baylor in the Big 12. If you can hold Baylor you can win a football game. So if these teams they can just play better defense in the Big 12, then you have a shot.
Yeah. Excuse me, fumbling with my papers here on my side of things. The defense looks good. Veterans up front. 2 Boise State transfers on the offensive line for BYU. And that's Isaiah Bagna, 5 tackles, 1 sack, 6'4" junior. He's going to come in. He's going to push for playing time. Not eye-popping stats, but he's a defensive lineman, right? I mean, you're not going to have 80 tackles as a defensive lineman. It's just not going to happen. And then the other defensive lineman, Jackson Cravens, 8 tackles, 1.5 sacks, 6'2", 305 pounds. So more of a nose tackle build. They're going to get good push up front. They're going to be speedy in the secondary and linebacker core as well. They're both going to be speedy, and they've got a veteran defensive line. So it's just about being. I think they're gonna lose games in the Big 12 just because they're out talented.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not going to go in and beat someone that you're just simply not as talented as. A team like Texas, I think. I don't know exactly. I don't have the Big 12 schedule memorized, but teams like TCU, Texas, maybe BYU can beat them, but I think talent, it's just going to come down to it. And until they build a roster with good recruits, being a Power 5 school, coming up from the group of 5, it's going to be tough to compete, but we will see. At running back, you had Christopher Brooks, an 1,000-yard rusher. He's gone, right? He's gone. He's going to the NFL. You've got Miles Davis, who was there last year for BYU. But you got a UNLV transfer, Aiden Robbins. He's going to be the favorite. 1,000 yards, 9 touchdowns at UNLV. But he had wrist surgery this spring. So it's going to be an open race for BYU at the running back spot. All of them kind of got carries for BYU. And you've got a 3-star arriving from El Paso, Texas, at running back as well. So open competition for BYU at the running back spot. It's gonna be fun to watch because BYU is no more a fun group of 5 team. They are a Big 12 team and a team that's gonna come in every week, have to play Kansas State, TCU, Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, even Houston, Cincinnati, and schools like that. So it's gonna be fun to watch them, and I'm gonna be excited to see what they can do. Ben, any other takeaways from now your fellow Big 12 opponent?
No. It's a team that it'll be interesting to watch them play in a real Power 5 conference.
And it's going to be fun to see them play with such good offenses. I'm excited to see if they can keep up.
Yeah, for sure. And if the defense can do anything about it.
Yeah. Let's go to our home city, Benjamin, Nashville. The Vanderbilt Commodores played their spring game. And when I wrote out my notes for episode 40, it hadn't been played yet. So I did it a little bit in advance, and I just have a couple questions. I hit up my guy, Billy Derrick. He sent me a Robbie Weinstein article from 24/7, which was really good. Gave me some intel from the spring game. He was at First Bank Stadium to watch it. Billy was. So definitely going to have Mr. Derrick on the show. Always helps out the show. So make sure to go follow him on Twitter and all that good stuff. But the question this year for Vanderbilt was, how will Swan look in his first year starting? You tell me. 19 for 16, 115 yards and 1 touchdown. They still somehow have Ken Seals. I swear to God, that kid's like 38 years old. In the article, they were talking about his leadership. Obviously, it's probably pretty good to have I think he might be a 5th or 6th year senior. Obviously, a good guy to have in the locker room. But Ben, if you want to talk about anything Vanderbilt, I've got a couple more things to talk about. But if you want to talk about Swan's performance, I'll give you the open floor to kick us off with the doors.
Yeah, I mean, AJ Swan, it's I went to 2 of their games last year. Will Shepard. Will Shepard.
You could call you a Vandy diehard, honestly. 2 games,
sure.
It's pretty impressive. Yeah,
I probably went to just as many games as their fans did. So, Will Shepard was a great receiver for him last year. Sure. Ray Davis, they had lost him to Kentucky, but
he's a Wildcat. Yeah,
that's a brutal one, an in-conference transfer. But I like AJ Swan. I was at the game when he played Georgia. Bit of a rough defense to start against. I will give him that.
Yeah.
They didn't score 0-49, but
56.
It's an interesting. It was 49.
I might be thinking about Tennessee.
Yeah,
go ahead. Keep going. I'm going to find the score
or something.
Yeah.
Okay, but the game we were at, they took out Mike Wright. They took out Mike Wright, and then AJ Swan went in and scored like 3 touchdowns.
It's true. Yeah.
So he's an interesting player, and I'm excited to see him with more experience, and he's probably going to be way more comfortable in the offense this year. So I'm excited to see that. And Vandy, it seems like this time now they're playing with way more excitement than they've ever have. So I'm excited to see what this team does.
It was 55-0 last year. So sorry, Vanderbilt fans, for rubbing that one in. Alabama, Ole Miss, and Georgia back-to-back last year for Vanderbilt. So quite the rough draw. But I saw something about their strength of schedule this year, and they have like the 12th easiest or like 12th hardest schedule in the SEC based on like last year's opponents or something. So this year they should be pretty good. But one of the bigger questions was who is going to take over for Anthony Orji, right? The guy on defense, their star player at the linebacker spot. Like you said, we went to go watch him play. He was flying around the field. He was in at every tackle, and you can't replace a guy like that. And I don't think they really tried to. Clark Lee talked about it. Same article from Robbie Weinstein. I'll try and link that one. Shout out to him. Credit to him for the article. I got a lot of good information from it and a lot of Clark Lee quotes and stuff like that. But apparently guys like CJ Taylor, Bryce Gowen, and Savion Riley seem to step up. There's no defensive stars like Orji, like I said, but an all-around solid defense, an improved defense, and should be much, much improved in the secondary. It's going to be tough. At linebacker, they got Kane Patterson, a transfer from Clemson who went to Ben. What high school here in Nashville? Do you know?
Hold on. In Nashville?
Yeah, went to a high school in Nashville. Pretty local for us here, Ben.
Ainsworth.
He went to CPA. He was a Lion. My uncle coached him in baseball back in the day, so rooting for Kane Patterson this year. Him and Ethan Barr are going to be expected to step up for the Commodores. They combined for 44 tackles and 1.5 sacks in last year's season. Offensively, we can go back to offense. It's going to be Patrick Smith, the favorite, and the redshirt freshman Chase Gillespie, who has unbelievable speed. It was probably going to be – it's probably Patrick Smith's job. Chase Gillespie is going to be a good 1-2 punch. Again, losing Anthony Orji, losing Ray Davis. That 1-2 punch of losing your star players is going to be rough. That being said, I think Vanderbilt can come out. I think Vanderbilt can shock some people. Can they get him over the bowl game hump? Can Will Shepherd push this team over the bowl game hump with A.J. Swan behind center? It's not going to be a quarterback revolving door. It's not going to be a question of who's starting what game, who's playing what quarter. It's A.J. Swan's team unless, unforeseen events happen, which we pray they don't. A.J. Swan's a guy who was somewhat promising in the spring game, made a couple bad throws, but again, it's April. We don't play till August, so you got 4 more months to nail all that down.
Right.
Ben, 2 more games before we get to our breakout stars. Let's stay in the SEC. Let's go to Auburn. Unfortunately, Beatty isn't a host of the show anymore, else he'd be a perfect guy. He'd probably have a pretty good rant on it because it was a pretty sloppy game. I don't know. It was weird.
Did you see the format that they did?
Yeah, it was kind of weird. Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, it was.
It was like I don't even.
So defense started up 24-0, and then they would just put offense wherever on the field with like a certain like time and stuff, and it was just see who could score, if they could score of like over 24, I guess.
Yeah. Hold on, I'm trying to pull it up. They had, I think it was like winners got steak and losers got hot dogs.
They got hot dogs. Yeah.
And I think they tied. Yeah, they tied 24-24.
What do you think they got? Do you think they got steaks or hot dogs?
No, they all got steaks. Yeah, they all got steaks. And McPherson, name sound familiar, hit a game-winning field goal against your Titans, Ben. His brother's kicking for Auburn, hit the game-tying field goal. So, yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, this is such a weird team. Like, Robbie Ashford didn't look great, honestly. He had a rushing touchdown, which is about as expected. Holden Gardner, TJ Finley, it's the same, just it's mid. I don't really know how else to describe it, Ben. It didn't look great.
No,
that being said, Auburn brings in a top 5 transfer class in 2023. Freeze brings in a ton of production from in-conference transfers, guys who are transferring up from the group of 5 level who can really come in and compete. And it's going to be who steps up for Auburn's defense. Owen Papo's gone. He's not here to lay a big hit on Sean Clifford anymore. He's not going to be that kind of playmaker for you. So we've got to have someone step up. Who's going to step up for Tank Bigsby? And it's always that in spring football. Who's going to be the next guy up? Just talked about it with Anthony Orji and Ray Davis. Same exact position. For Auburn, it's a little more clear, and that's Jarquez Hunter. 668 yards and 7 touchdowns in 2022. 17 catches, 224 yards, 2 touchdowns. And
didn't he go to Colorado?
Did he really?
Or was that Cavassier Smoke?
That's Cavassier Smoke.
Okay, then that's what I'm thinking of. Yeah,
Jarquez Hunter. I was about to say, Jarquez Hunter did not transfer, yeah.
I thought it was – yeah.
Yeah, he's still there. God, he gave me a heart attack. I was like, I just read something on him the other day. No, we're good. We're good. Yeah. I'm excited for it. You know, they bring back their defensive coordinator who's in his second year. I misread that. They bring in a new defensive coordinator, Ron Roberts, who was at Baylor. You know, it's going to be a fun defense, Ben. I don't know what your take is on the quarterback spot. I want to get back to that. Do you have any take on what you saw at Ashford?
It's just, yeah, I think it's the same thing that we're going to see from last year, and it's just, yeah, I mean, it's literally just who can. It's really just going to be a door. Like, if Ashford's playing good, we'll leave him in, and then Finley's playing good, we'll try him next game. I mean, I just think it'll be something to where they're just going to have to keep on rotating until they can really find that certified spot.
Yeah. It was raining, to be fair. Like, that's a rough time to play a spring game. It was pretty empty. They sold a ton of tickets, and it ended up like no one showing up. Weston sent me a TikTok on it. It was pretty funny, but yeah, I mean, it was a weird game. Like, you just didn't see anyone step up, right? You didn't see anyone look phenomenal. It wasn't like you see Benjamin Hall from Michigan step up well. It's not like you see AJ Swan produce well. It was weird, man. Austin Keys, DeMario Tolan transfer from SEC opponents. And you got 4 or 5 transfer defensive linemen. So Hugh Freeze bolstered this defense. He did a good job bringing in some guys to help produce. But, man, you know, and I don't ever think that the defense is ever really the number one problem for Auburn. We've seen guys like Derek Brown and some pretty good players come out of Auburn on the defensive side of the ball. But, man, offensively, it's going to be a struggle bus if they can't get a good quarterback, Ben.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like in the SEC especially, you need someone to be able to run that offense and command that team. And without a quarterback, it's really hard to do, man. I mean, you do not see if an SEC team is without a leading quarterback, you do not see them going far.
Yeah. Timeout in the broadcast here, episode 23. What are we 23 minutes in, episode 40. What are we thinking about the new backdrop, Benny?
It looks nice. When I popped in, I was like, okay, that's new. I hadn't seen it, and I was like, oh, wow, okay.
Tennessee poster in the back. Shout out to University Traditions hooking me up with the Auburn, Alabama hat. They sent this one over. You know, a couple of bottles, some college football helmets up there, getting in the mood for college football as we jump closer toward the season. But yeah, man, just overall overhaul. Before I was pointing toward my bed, just looked, you know, I just felt unprofessional, but hey, we're jumping in episode 40. It's a new time. NC State. It's MJ Morris's team. I'm sorry, Brendan Armstrong. I'm sorry, Wolfpack fans listening or watching on YouTube. We do appreciate you tuning in. But MJ Morris is the starting quarterback at NC State this season. I can see Brendan Armstrong hopping back into the portal. He transferred in from Virginia, an in-conference transfer. He threw 2 picks in the spring game. Hear me out. The weather was absolutely terrible. I know Barstool posted something about it, and everybody was just going in on him about how bad the weather was. So I do understand that. But MJ Morris looks sharp, right? He took over for Devin Leary, and you know, there was kind of a weird quarterback situation last year. Devin Leary's now at Kentucky, so it's either Brendan Armstrong, the transfer from UVA, or it's going to be MJ Morris, the young buck. 7 touchdowns, 1 pick in 5 games. Right? Took over for NC State and led them where they wanted to go. Brendan Armstrong, Ben, I want you to guess his touchdown to interception ratio.
Brennan Armstrong.
Yeah.
In the game? Or like last year?
No. Last year's stats.
Okay. 8 touchdowns to 6 picks.
Unfortunately, it was 7 touchdowns to 12 interceptions last season.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, it was it was pretty bad. He only played 10 games. He was out a couple of games, so his yards were only 2,200. It was whatever. 7 touchdowns and 12 interceptions. He looked not good in the spring game, to say the least. I think it's MJ Morris's team. I think he's young. You bring in a new offensive coordinator from Syracuse. Robert Anae steps in, and it's God, dude. It was bad. It was bad, man. So I think it's MJ Morris's team. At receiver, Trent Penix and Porter Rooks are expected to step up. Former a wide receiver 1 and a Clemson hated player, Devin Carter, transferring to Penn State. Obviously, he caught that touchdown in the quarter in the end zone against Clemson to lead the Wolfpack to an upset victory there. But yeah, I mean, NC State, it's going to be a rough ride if they don't figure out this quarterback situation. And we continue to say it, Ben. If a team doesn't have a strong quarterback, they're not going to be able to compete. I think the same thing. I think the same thing is true in Raleigh.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's kind of a weird duo with them because it seems as MJ Morris is definitely the better passer. But I think they might trust Brennan Armstrong's legs a bit better with the experience. I mean, he's like a 6-year, so he's been there for a minute. But MJ Morris, the true freshman, it's going to be rough if you toss him in that game. But if they can find that trust in him and he can find that confidence, I mean, he's still a freshman, so there's still a long way to go.
Yeah, definitely a good way to go. A lot of NC State fans, from what I've seen, message boards, Twitter, all of the outlets where you would see fans talking about fan stuff, they want MJ at quarterback 1. They want MJ as their starting QB. Like you said, though, the experience definitely goes to Armstrong. We'll see if he can bounce back. Maybe he was battling injuries last season, and maybe he has a good year. Spoiler alert: he's not one of my breakout stars, Ben. So, I'll just give you that. I'll just give you that straight up. I think we only have one quarterback. A couple defensive players sprinkled in there as well, huh?
Do you have a quarterback?
I don't. You have a quarterback.
Okay, so yeah, I have one.
Yeah. So we will go ahead and get to that. A lot of spring game stuff, some fun stuff to break down. BYU, like I said, good offensive line, good quarterbacks, and some fun stuff going down there in Provo. What a call. Are we ready to get to our breakout stars?
I'm ready.
Let's let Ben cook first. Go ahead, buddy. Kick us off.
All right, you want me to start wherever?
Yeah, start wherever you want.
All right, well, I'm going to go with a player that we've definitely talked about him for a bit. It's a team that could finish top 10 in the nation last year, a great team coming up on his junior season, and I think he's just poised for a breakout, like I've said multiple times. It's Johnny Wilson. He's a great receiver, and this FSU offense, he seems ready to step up, and I'm excited for it. After watching him playing against us, he can literally do whatever you ask of him. He's fast and he's massive. He can get a jump ball over you. 200 receiving yards against us. I think that he is everything he needs to be a breakout receiver, and I'm excited. He's 6'7". He is massive.
Yeah.
I think that he and this Jordan Travis feels way more comfortable in this offense. People can be more focused on Trey Benson in the running game, and I think that Johnny Wilson will have a good season.
Yeah, breakout star number 1 from us is Johnny Wilson at Florida State. And I tend to agree with you, Ben. I think he is one of the better candidates. I knew you were going to pick him.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I didn't pick him. I do have a Florida State player on my list. I'll stay away from him first. I'll get to Johnny Wilson, though. I do like him. Like you said, it's hard to deny 6'7" with speed like that. I think you're just like bound to be one of the better receivers in college football. He's a clear number one option at Florida State now. He becomes more comfortable in the offense, like you said. And yeah, man, his senior year, is it his junior or his senior year?
He's junior. He was sophomore last year.
Yeah, so his junior year is going to be an exciting one. And the thing that was promising about Johnny Wilson, I think, was he had such big games that it just got you excited for when he's been able to progress, when he can be that number one option, and it's this year. Georgia Tech, 3 catches, 111 yards, 1 touchdown. Louisville, 7 catches, 149 yards, 2 touchdowns. Right? Games like that, 6 catches, 85 yards, and a touchdown against Wake. Games like that where he has games where he goes up and gets jump balls, where he's able to break away from tackles, where he's able to look like the number one option on a top 10 team in the country. That's what makes him so promising. I think that's a great pick because breakout stars will always have those breakout games the year before, but not really be able to put it together. And not always, but most of the time. And I think Johnny Wilson can definitely do that this season. Ben, let's go to my favorite team. Right back here. And although I don't know if he can end up with the likes of these guys, give me Squirrel White, the speedster wideout from the University of Tennessee, one of the fastest receivers in the SEC, 5'10", 160 pounds, and showed a remarkable connection with Joe Milton in the Orange Bowl. That is my number one most important reason I think Squirrel White could be a breakout candidate. I heard J.D. Buckell talking about Tennessee. Had Josh Heupel onto his podcast, The Hard Count. Make sure to go check it out. Really solid interview. We talked that JD talked about a little bit Ramil Keaton, his role, his step up. He could be a breakout. And I think that is true. I think Ramil Keaton's a great receiver. I watched him in every game of his college career last season. And he was a solid receiver. The thing is, I think connections are important. I think being comfortable with a receiver is just as important as maybe a little less important as the actual skill of the receiver. It's going to be a really talented wide receiver room, like always, a really wide receiver friendly receiving core. Ramil Keaton, Dante Thornton, the transfer from Oregon, Brew McCoy out wide, who had a remarkable season last year. He could get some serious production. I'm excited. I saw him run the deep go routes. I saw him run post routes. I saw Joe Milton throw absolute seeds to him last year in the Orange Bowl and beat Clemson. And that the rack yards, Ben, the run after catch is going to be Squirrel's friend. I'm really high on him. I'm rooting for him as a Tennessee fan. I'll give you a neutral take on my guy Squirrel before I give you a little bit of trivia. Because what would it be? What Southern Boy Sports episode would it be if Drew doesn't give?
There's always something.
Yeah, it is.
Well, I personally, he's perfect for this offense because if you ask Joe Milton the ideal receiver he had, it would be Squirrel White.
Yeah.
So a fast guy that can fly down the field, you overthrow him a bit, but he somehow manages to still get the ball. Yep. Squirrel White is everything that they want in this offense, and I think it'll be a good connection.
Yeah, not to say he didn't hook up with Hendon Hooker a little bit. 30 catches, 481 yards, and 2 touchdowns last season. But in the Orange Bowl, his breakout game, 9 catches, 108 yards, and a touchdown, and really set Vol fans up for a little sneak peek of what could be going down next season. I'm excited for Squirrel White. Ben, though, your trivia. Yeah. Pretty softball trivia here. Just kind of wanted to rile you up, give you some memories of a certain team in the Big 12. Can you name me another college football player nicknamed Squirrel?
Yes, I can.
His name
Squirrel Williams. Yeah,
is the owner of Oklahoma, Craig Squirrel Williams.
Whoa.
At BU, the Baylor Bears, and man, that is the other player named Squirrel. But Squirrel White is my breakout player. Just giving Ben a little bit of a hard time there, but nonetheless, I think Squirrel could be something special here in 2023. Ben, let's get back to you.
Yeah. Oh, for my player, right? Yep. Okay. Second player. Transfers in to a Pac-12 school. We're going with Carson Steele, man. Coming in from Ball State, going into his junior year also. He showed out at Ball State, ran for 1,556 yards, 14 touchdowns. This guy was a monster.
For sure.
And I think he's just poised for a breakout in this new UCLA offense. I think he has everything you'd want. And I think that this with this pack in this Pac-12, defenses are a bit iffy. So the
Yeah.
offenses really have to shine, and I think he's ready to do that with whoever it is, either Dante Moore at quarterback or
Ethan
what
Garbers.
is his name? Ethan Garbers. Ethan Garbers. I think he could show out for sure.
Yeah, I think they're going to be a pretty run-heavy team. DTR obviously moving on from UCLA after 39 years in college. Carson Steele was a guy that even when you watched Ball State last year, which might be 11 people, when I watched Ball State last year against Tennessee and I watched him one other game, I think it was against Ohio, he was clear and far and away the best player on the field, right? It was just so clear he was their guy. When I watched him play Tennessee, you could tell he was just a Power 5 talent. He was running through tackles. He was stiff-arming. He's a tough runner. He's really tough to bring down. I think he's got some good moves in the secondary as well, and I do really like this pick. Like you said, a good amount of rushing yards last season. Punched it in a couple times. Obviously playing with a subpar Ball State team. But nonetheless, yeah, I really like Carson Steele. Maybe not as good of a UCLA team as we saw last year, but certainly a year to develop, a year to get a solid, experienced running back to replace Zach Charbonnet here in 2023. And yeah, I definitely like Carson Steele as a candidate. Ben, timeout.
Mm-hmm.
I called my second time out of the episode. I called my first time out to shout out, the background. I called my second time out. If you're watching on YouTube, these graphics, I feel like you got to enjoy them. Nicely, aesthetically pleasing. The nice little color, the logo, the player. I'm proud of it here in episode 40. We're taking a step in the right direction for Southern Boy Sports, getting some graphics nailed down. And let's get to the next one. It might be my favorite graphic, so we'll go with that one. If you're listening on podcast, I apologize. Trevor Etienne. Brother of former Clemson standout Travis Etienne. Let me read you his 2022-23 stats. 110 carries, 705 yards, 6 touchdowns. He will get more touches in 2023. If you listen to us talk in episode 30, whatever episode we talked about QB battles, I was high on Graham Mertz. We talked about running the ball a little bit more this season. We talked about it with J.D. Pickell as well. And it was, he's going to be forced to hand the ball off more, Graham Mertz is. He's had a talented running back at Wisconsin and Braylon Allen. He's going to have another one here at Florida with Trevor Etienne. He's got a couple guys behind him. He's got Johnson behind him, who's a solid running back. He's got some talent in that room with him, but I think Trevor Etienne is clearing away the better running back. Mertz is a better quarterback at reading progressions and not scrambling. Anthony Richardson is drop back, nothing open to run. He was a run-first quarterback. He was dang good at it. He had a cannon when he would let the ball loose, but Graham Mertz is going to sit there, go through his progressions, take a couple sacks, throw a couple picks, but he's going to be able to become more of that receiving back, a guy who can get up and go on a wheel route or a screen or a curl route out of the backfield. He's a solid blocker. The thing is, let me give you a player comparison, Ben. Devin Neal from Kansas. Here's my note. Devin Neal-esque jump. Not widely recognized, but a new quarterback could lead to more yards and more production. Could be key to 8 to 9 wins for Florida. Let me read you Devin Neal and Trevor Etienne's stats last year, okay? I'll read you Devin Neal's stats in 2021. 158 carries, 707 yards, 8 touchdowns. Receiving, 7 catches, 57 yards and a touchdown with Jason Bean at quarterback. If you're familiar with JB, he's not good. Now, here's Devin Neal last year with Jalen Daniels at quarterback. 180 carries, 1,090 yards, 9 touchdowns, 21 catches, 183 yards, 1 touchdown. Now, 1,000-yard rusher with 9 touchdowns after a 700-yard rusher with 8 touchdowns. If you recall, Trevor Etienne's stats, 705 yards, 6 touchdowns. Now, do I think Trevor Etienne's just more of an explosive back? I don't think he's more of a grinded out, churned it out back. I think he can get out in space and run. But that's my player comparison for him. He's not going to be a Heisman candidate. He's not going to be a dark horse Heisman guy. He's not going to be a widely recognized. If you don't watch college football every week, you're probably not going to be super high on him. But I think he can be good enough to become an all SEC conversations. I think he'd be good enough to give Florida 8 or 9 wins this season. And if he's really, really good, if he's elite, he'll cancel out the interceptions from Graham Mertz and the poor receiving corps. But that's just my 2 cents, Ben. I'll open up the floor for you if you got anything on Mr. Etienne.
No, for sure. I mean, I was on Instagram or something, and it was a video of him, like, he found a hole and he just like absolutely blew through it. I mean, he showed off that explosiveness.
Explosion,
and it was like
for sure.
It was like Travis, his brother, was like, "When did he get this fast?" and something. So he was talking him up. But
yeah,
Etienne, he's a really good back. I mean, he's got a great brother to learn from. His brother showed out in the NFL last year.
certainly.
And yeah, I think this year with Graham Mertz at quarterback definitely puts him in a better position to succeed. And so I think he definitely can.
Yeah. I'm really high on Trevor Etienne. I think he could be really fun to watch at Florida. Maybe not when they play Tennessee because he could rip us a new one. But yeah, I like Etienne for sure. Ben, I'll give you your next breakout star, buddy.
All right, my next breakout star. It is somebody we've already touched on in this episode. It is Will Johnson.
Oh, you threw me a change up there, buddy.
We hadn't talked about Farouk, so
I did.
Will Johnson.
A little bit, yeah. Sure.
You did?
Yeah, I just talked about him when we were talking about BYU.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, Will Johnson, going into his sophomore year, obviously had limited production last year, but this year he's ready to shine. Had 3 picks last year, and he's just ready to shine even more. He's turning into this leader of this secondary, and I think he's ready to do that. Multiple freshmen behind him that he's ready to like coach up, teach him the ropes. This guy's 6'3", 190. He is every build that you would want. He's a build that every corner would want. And I think he's poised for it. This Michigan team, they're very smart, they're very balanced, and with Harbaugh and all them at the reins, I think he could definitely improve over the offseason and then show it this year.
Yeah. 3 picks last year, as you mentioned, Ben, for Will Johnson. 3 pass deflections. He was in the passing lane. And most importantly, 2 of those interceptions came in the Big Ten championship game against Purdue. So we know he's not scared of the lights. Although it was a mid Big Ten West team, he still picked him off twice. He picked off Aiden O'Connell, who was an experienced quarterback. 23 solo tackles last year. Like you said, it's going to be time for him to step up. Everybody's gone. It's going to be time for him to shine. And another solid pick there, Ben. Let's go back to FSU. I know we really do touch on FSU a lot around here nowadays, but we're going to stick with him. Trey Benson.
There it is.
A hot topic in episode 38. Me and Ben, we're going back and forth about Trey Benson and his potential. Trey Benson, I got belief in him. He's got a very experienced offensive line with multiple returners, 3 transfers. That's a redshirt senior, Casey Roddick from Colorado, redshirt senior transfer from Auburn, Keandre Jones, and redshirt junior, Jeremiah Byers from UTEP. FSU also brings in a 4 and a 3 star up front for depth, more than likely, and returns 80% of his offense, brings back offensive coordinator, which has an offensive line background. He's going to have guys to run behind. He's going to have a quarterback who's going to run to set up the pass. We talked about it with JD. A run to set up the pass offense. We touched on in episode 39 with Mr. Breakout, like I said. Now, let me give you another player comparison here, Ben. I've laid out the pros of his –
really have.
Of Trey Benson, and now I'll give you another one. Here's Blake Corum in 2021, 2 years ago. 144 carries, 952 yards, 12 touchdowns. Here's Trey Benson in 2022. 141 carries, 965 yards, and 9 touchdowns. That is 13 yards off, 3 carries off, and 3 touchdowns off. Okay. Here's Blake Corum in 2022. 247 carries, 1,463 yards, and 19 touchdowns. Now, do I think he's going to get the ball 247 times this season? Absolutely not.
No.
That being said, Trayshawn Ward, the backup running back, transferred to Kansas State. He's going to have the opportunity to touch the bar a little bit more. He ages one more year. He's got the trust from Mike Norvell. He's got the trust from Jordan Travis. He's got a trustworthy offensive line. And FSU will be a good enough team to put Trey Benson into Heisman contention. Now,
No.
does that mean Trey Benson is going to win the Heisman? Absolutely not. But was Blake Corum in slight Heisman conversations through week 7, 8, 9 of the season? Yes. And I think Trey Benson could be in the same spot. Now, disclaimer. If FSU doesn't go out and win games like we expect them to, absolutely not. I think Trey Benson's going to be a factor, although Jordan Travis could more than likely steal the show in what may happen this year. But Trey Benson, I want him to make a jump. He's my number one breakout star in 2023, 2024. I've got my money on Trey Benson. If I was a betting man, I'm betting on Trey Benson breakout. Ben's a hater, but you know what? We're going to roll.
I'm not hating. I just think it's not happening.
Right.
Because look, the offenses are completely different. Blake Corum was the production for that offense. FSU plays a completely different style.
Certainly, yeah.
So
I do agree with that. I mean, I'm not saying
it will be that he will be. I'm
not saying he's going to touch the ball 247 times. The thing about Blake Corum was he's a guy who can get out and run. He can make men miss, but he is a guy who's going to get 3 or 4 yards even if nothing's there. That's what makes Blake Corum a good running back, is he's really balanced. The thing about Trey Benson is he doesn't have to touch the ball 250 times to run for 14 or 1,200 yards. If he comes out and touches the ball 188 times this year or 170 times this year, and he runs for 1,100 to 1,200 yards, punches in a couple more touchdowns, and gets it up to 11 or 12 touchdowns, or even keeps it at 9 or 10, I think he's a guy who, if they're winning games, and he is one of the main reasons, I think could sneak up. Now, like I said, Jordan Travis could potentially steal the show, but I don't know, man.
If an FSU player's in Heisman contention, it's Jordan Travis.
Let me see. Okay. Last year, Jordan Travis attempted about, you would probably have to say like 25 to 30 passes a game. It was so weird, though, because he was kind of all over the place. It wasn't like he, did it a bunch. J.J. McCarthy is kind of in the same spot. They almost threw the same amount of balls or attempted the same amount of passes. Not comparing Michigan and Florida State's offense. I think they're polar opposites. But that being said, I don't know, Ben. I don't know. I'm high on my guy, Trey Benson. Yeah. What if we could get him on the show? What if? Oh, the places we'll go. Go ahead, Ben. Your next guy.
All right, next guy. This is somebody Drew has talked about on the show. And it is Jalil Farouk. He's my guy, my team. And look, I mean, after losing Marvin Mims to the draft, we need a receiver to step up. Drake Stoops, he's not the type of number one receiver. He is the type of slot receiver that catches the ball. But Jalil Farouk is the number one that we need to step up. And I think if we can limit the drops and get him downfield, I think he's poised to have a good season. Last year, only had 466 yards and 5 touchdowns, but a much increased role this year. A very high increased role this year. And so I think even closer connection with Dylan Gabriel and just that more production that he will get, I think could definitely set him to break out.
Yeah. He's going to be wide receiver 1 for Brent Venables and company. I like Dylan Gabriel coming into this year. I know people are, buzzing around Jackson Arnold and his new boots on campus in Norman, but I do like Jalil Farouk. I like what he's got going with Dylan Gabriel. Last season, obviously, they had that connection from last year. They're going to continue that chemistry into this year. Solid pick there. Give me my first defensive player of the day. I got 2 defensive players to end us off, Ben. And where's my guy? He is right around here. Francisco Mauigoa. Now, many people may be saying, Drew, no, his name is Francis, and he plays offensive line for Miami. No, he's got a brother who transfers in from Washington State, with his brother arriving on campus, Francis, who is a 5-star offensive line from IMG. Now, Francisco plays linebacker. He tackled 35 solo, or he had 35 solo tackles last year, 3.5 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, 1 interception. Washington State was an LA Bowl team. They were 7-5. They weren't very widely known. Now, you put a guy like this with these same stats under the spotlight at Miami, under the defense of Mario Cristobal, under a potential 8-9 win team in the ACC this season, and that's a huge if. I think this could be a really, really, really big guy to keep an eye on. My main point here with Francisco Mauigoa is not that he's going to go out and have 88 tackles with 9 sacks and 4 fumbles and 2 picks. That's not my point. My point is Mauigoa is going to have a slight increase in production. You bring in Lance Guidry, the DC from Marshall. It's a great hire, right? You replace Kevin Steele, who went off to take the job at Alabama. Under Cristobal, under Lance Guidry, under a new regime for Francisco Mauigoa playing with his brother, I think his stats may increase slightly, and I think they should. I think he gains a year of experience. I think he's a good linebacker at the collegiate level. But I think the spotlight is going to be more on him since he is at Miami, since he transfers into the ACC and is under a nationally recognized team and under a nationally recognized regime. Only a sophomore, and he's 6'3", 230 with some serious speed. So that's my next pick, Ben. Francisco Mauigoa. Keep an eye on him in 2023, 2024. I think there's going to be a lot more publicity around Francis and Francisco, and I think that could cause him to be a breakout player in a lot of people's minds and in the media's mind for sure.
Yeah. I for sure, when you said it, I'm going to be honest, I for sure thought you were talking about Francis, and I was like, what is this guy saying? But yeah, this Miami team, it's going to be something to watch for, so I'm excited to see it. So now, moving on to the last one.
Yeah, you got one more to wrap us up here, Ben.
And I'm gonna go in. We're gonna go into the quarterback.
Let's do it.
Drew Aller.
Aller.
Sorry.
You're good.
In terms of being a good player for this team, everyone already knows that. Everyone expects Drew Aller to come in here, be into his sophomore year, show out, and be the quarterback that they wanted Sean Clifford to end up as.
Yeah.
So I think that this year he will, and I think that he can show it, and I think he's ready to show it. And I think with I'm forgetting their head coach's name.
James
Franklin. Golly. I was like, I think their offense is poised. Sean Clifford last year, I think him having a 24-7 interception ratio means that Drew Aller can have like a 40-8 ratio. So I think Drew Aller is smart with the ball, and I think that once he gets adjusted and comfortable in his offense, that they are ready to play against these Big Ten defenses. And I think that he will show out this year, and that's why I think he will break out into more of a proven star.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing about Penn State is it's hard to see kind of what Penn State is doing, but I think they're going to be one of the better teams in the Big Ten. We talked with V a little bit about Michigan's season next year, and he said he's a little bit scared of Penn State going into Happy Valley to play Penn State. They lose Parker Washington. They lose Mitchell Tinsley. They lose Strange, right? They bring back a guy in Keandre Lambert-Smith. They bring in a transfer in Devin Carter. And I think that Drew Aller is going to be able to get out, move the ball, throw it around a little bit. In limited attempts, he had a 4-0 touchdown to interception ratio, 35-60 for 344 yards. Now, kind of garbage time. We've seen him in spring ball, and he's looked pretty good. The spring game for Penn State is coming up this Saturday. So we'll have thoughts on that next Tuesday morning, hopefully, if we can, get it together and get a episode out on time. But, hey, Nick Singleton, Drew Aller, definitely could be fun to watch. And keep an eye on Penn State. Good pick there from Ben. Let's get to my final pick to end off episode 40. The only true freshman here on the list, Ben, it's going to be Peter Woods, the defensive lineman, the true freshman from Thompson High School in Alabama. He is 6'3", 270 pounds. Dabo Swinney and company will put muscle on that, will put poundage on that. He's coming out of high school. They're going to bulk him up a little bit. But, man, God, this kid is special, man. He's quick.
Yeah.
He's fast. He's, like you said, you're about to say he's massive, man.
He's massive, yeah.
Yeah. He committed to Clemson over teams like Cincinnati, Texas, Arkansas, Bama, Georgia, Oklahoma, Michigan, UNC. Teams like this. He wanted to be at Clemson, and there's a reason, and that's because they develop defensive line talent, right? Like they produced Breezy, Miles Murphy, KJ Henry. They lose all of those guys. They produced them into good talent. One of the guys that stands out the most is Dodd. You remember, I want to say
Kevin Dodd.
Titans
drafted him second round.
Phenomenal talent at Clemson.
Mm-hmm.
So Peter Woods is another guy who's coming in at the D-line spot. Obviously, he's not going to be a huge edge rushing talent, but he's a guy who can get pressure up front. You're playing ACC quarterbacks this season, a pretty poor ACC here in 2023, to say the least. And he could be a serious impact true freshman that I don't think a lot of people are talking about right now. You're losing a ton of production up front. I think Peter Woods doesn't have to be a breakout 30 tackle guy, 2 forced fumbles, 4 sacks. I know I continue to say that, but I think he could be a serious breakout player in Clemson's defense who could prove to be the key piece to keep Clemson's defense in sync. They have to have a good defensive line. They've always got a good, pretty good secondary, but a good defensive line is always super important for Dabo Swinney coach teams, especially with a younger defensive coordinator. Venables isn't there in that same regime, obviously, who's been pumping out defensive line talent. So Peter Woods is going to have to step in and take the reins there. But Ben, Peter Woods, Trey Benson, Squirrel White, Francisco Maui Goa, and Trevor Etienne are my 5 guys. Got some solid clips from this episode that'll go up probably on Twitter and maybe Instagram and YouTube as well. It's been a great episode. Got it to the guys and the girls who are listening just a little bit late. But, hey, we're here. Ben, any objection before we close out episode 40?
No, I'm good.
Woo-wee. Make sure to go follow our Twitter. Make sure to go follow our Instagram and watch our YouTube videos if you're listening right now. Finish listening. Give us a 5-star review. Head over to YouTube and watch it as well. We got some pretty good graphics here on episode 40. Got to check out Drew's backdrop as well. So make sure to go follow our Twitter at @so_boy_sports. Follow our Instagram at southern_boy_sports pod. And stay tuned. Keep up with our breakout stars here in 2023. It's going to be a fun one to keep an eye on. This has been episode 40 of the Southern Boy Sports Podcast. Same time, same place next week. See you, boys.